Hey everybody, welcome to Quest Leadership Live. I'm your host, Tom Tony. So glad you joined me here today. Excited to talk to you about this important topic. Today we're going to talk about building culture among your student leaders. Building culture. Culture is a big deal. I just want to share some simple tips with you today, how you can build a strong culture that is going to greatly impact their personal development. So how they grow as leaders, how they grow as individuals is greatly impacted by the culture that you build in your Quest system, on your team, in your environment. And so stay tuned as we talk about building strong culture. So building culture is a big deal, and we might think that it's really difficult to do, but the truth is that with a few simple tips, tricks, ideas, you can begin building a strong culture today among your young students. I want to talk to you about a little bit of what this takes, give you kind of three key things that you can do to lean in on to build a culture, whether you're building a culture inside of your classroom as a teacher, if you're building a culture inside of your church service team as a Quest church, or in a Quest organization outside of the church. How to build culture is the key to helping your kids develop properly and in a healthy way. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this. First, I want to give you some basics of what culture is, what you can expect from culture. And so let's kind of go through these first little pieces of definition here. First of all, we understand that in any organization, so whether this is a company, a business, a corporation, whether this is a small team, a sports team inside your classroom, wherever you might be, anytime you have a collective group of people that are headed toward a common goal, a team, here are some truths that we know. First is that vision is always going to flow from the top down. Vision always flows from the top down. So if you want to know what a company believes, a corporation believes, a team believes, ask the leaders. The leaders can tell you, they can give you that vision, what they're passionate about, the values, and so on. It's always going to kind of flow from the top down. However, culture is built from the bottom up. So what does that mean? And why do I draw this distinction? Well, first of all, as leaders, sometimes we can pop in and say, you know what, here's what our kids do. This is how they act. This is the way we go about what we do, and so on. We kind of lay out the vision for what our environment is like. And sometimes in doing that, we kind of dream a little bit. Sometimes I wouldn't say necessarily exaggerate or don't tell the truth, but it's what's in our heart. It's what we want. Or whether it's actually working that way or not is a different question. And that's the second piece of this, is that vision is always going to come from the top down. You're always going to hear vision from the leader. But culture, you're going to see from the bottom up. This is the way that I say it. If you want to know what a business, a company, a team believes, ask the leaders. If you want to know how it operates, go spend a day with the team members, the employees, the people doing the work. That's where culture is forged. And so what we have to do is ensure that there's a strong link between these two things, what we say and what we actually do. And that's what builds culture. All right. So culture is what happens naturally. Culture is what happens naturally. Sort of think about it as this is kind of a funny example, I guess, but think about the word culture in terms of like a bacteria or a fungus. A fungus doesn't need to be told to grow. It just needs the right environment. And inside that environment, it's naturally going to grow. It's going to culture. And so the same thing happens in culture inside of our teams with our students, is that things are naturally going to happen. And so we always want to keep our eye out and our ear out for what is naturally happening and asking, does that align to what we want, to what we see, our vision? So we get vision and culture actually working together. So culture is not built, it emerges. I love this point. Culture is not built, it emerges. A lot of times we think about building, we got to build culture. In fact, that's the name of this particular episode. It's building culture. Should have maybe renamed it. Anyhow, building culture is how we typically come out. It's like, I got to work on this. I got to forge it. I got to create it. The truth is that culture creates itself. It emerges from strong processes. And that's kind of the thing I want you to see here, is that culture reflects process and environment. culture is always going to reflect process and environment. So whatever happens naturally on your team, however your kids are responding to your leadership and your coaching, how they're responding to one another, how they're getting work done, how they're performing, their level of confidence, their personal interactions, all those things are reflective of the processes and the environment. So we're not necessarily trying to change culture as a focus. We're going to focus on our process environment, and that's going to produce culture. Culture becomes a way we can simply examine, what do we have? What is it? Culture is also what others experience. So when you ask somebody, maybe there's somebody that's new to your team, they come in, or maybe you have a new coach that joined the team, and you ask them, so what do you think about our environment here, our culture? And they start to share with you. What they're sharing is what has been reflected to them. But what they're sharing the culture with you, it's not so much about we have to go change the culture as it is we need to really inspect our processes and our environment, because that's what's producing the culture. Culture reflects that. All right. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. How do we do this? So a few key simple things here that you could do to build culture. Number one, begin with words. Culture always begins with language. Language is the vehicle and the reflector of culture. What does that mean? That language, what we hear our teams, our students saying, is a reflection of the culture. In other words, you're going to hear what comes up out of their heart is what the culture actually is. And so the language reflects the culture, but language also builds the culture. Language also creates and establishes the culture. It's the vehicle for culture. So language, begin with words. Get your words down. Use your words to actually build the culture. So what do we do? In beginning with words, we have to listen and lead. We have to listen for what's being said, listen for what the culture actually is, and then lead those words in a new direction. So hear them, and if they're not reflecting the culture you desire, begin by shifting the mentality and the thought processes that brought those words about. I'm telling you, words are such a powerful tool for us, such an incredible way for us to really examine our culture. We can see it in action. We can see it in outcome. We can see it in excellence, but you're going to hear it constantly in what's being said. So you got to listen in, lean in and listen to what's being said, and then lead anything that doesn't align to the culture. Lead that back to what you desire for the culture. Second thing we have to do is create clarity. So there has to be a clear picture of what we want the culture to be. Clarity is the foundation of success. The success we have is always built on the clarity we have. And so if you're not getting the results that you expect out of your culture, you're going to have to check the clarity. Maybe we're not clear about how we operate, about the kind of team we're going to be, how we treat one another, the kind of output we have in terms of excellence and energy and focus, all those things. So you have to have and create clarity so everyone understands, here's what we're going after. It's the foundation of success. So what do? We use words to create clarity. We use words to create clarity. And I'll show you an example of this in just a second. All right. So clarity is the foundation of success. Use your words to create clarity. When you see or you hear or you experience that something on your team is out of alignment with the culture you desire, use words to reestablish the clarity of that expectation. And not just like talk about it, I'm talking about words that mean what you're trying to convey. Again, I'll give you an example of exactly how this works in just a second, because those words are going to become the language of your culture, and you want to get your team speaking those words, because that's what's going to build the culture inside of them and then produce it out here in their interactions and how they go about what they do. The final thing then is we want to enforce the standards. We want to enforce the standards, hold to the standards. We can't relent on the standards. Now, this means standards can't change. Standards can change, but they should not fluctuate. Your standards shouldn't be like this. Your standards should not be a roller coaster. They should be a solid anchor. If they change, if you ever change your standards, it's because you did it on purpose. You chose to sit down and think through and bring change to your standards, not because they're compromised or they're accommodating somebody's attitude or actions or the way they want to go about it. And so the standard then leans in a direction. No, the standard is the standard until we make a conscious decision to change that standard. This is the standard, and we're going to enforce that standard. So we have to expect, number one, expect everybody's going to align to the standard. That's the expectation. No exceptions. No exceptions. The minute there's an exception to a standard, you have a new standard. So there can be no exceptions to the standard. If there are exceptions to the standard, then it's not the standard, right? So standard. So enforce the standard, expect it. Everybody knows the standard. Everybody operates by the standard. It's expected of everyone. And secondly, we have to inspect it. If I expect it, then I have to inspect it. So I expect it. Are we doing it? Are we saying it? Are we being it? Are we performing it? Are we acting it out? Are we treating others that way? Are we following the standards? So you have to expect and inspect the standards you have set. For some, step one, you got to set the expectations. The first thing you have to do is have standards. So you got to set the expectations. You may not have written expectations for your team. You may not have verbiage that goes with those expectations. You've got to have this to build culture. Well, let me say it this way. You have to have this to establish the culture that you want. Culture is going to happen anyhow. But if you want it to be a certain culture, a culture that you desire on the team, then you have to establish these standards. All right. So what do? We use words to enforce the standards. We use words. Again, we're going to use these phrases and these words because words are what connect our brain to reality. Our brains have to process words, just like you're doing right now with me talking. Your brains, and like I'm doing talking, brains have to process words, and those words, what's spoken, actually sets the foundation for the culture. I won't go into it today, but this is a very powerful aspect of culture setting. So we're talking about building culture. How do we do that? These three ways. Use the words, create clarity, and set standards. Expect the standards. All right. So let me show you real quickly. Super simple. This is how we do it in the Quest student leadership model. One of the things that we have available is what we call our core values. These are our Quest core values, and these are just phrases that we use to drive home the standards and the culture that we desire on every Quest team. Every organization, every Quest organization has these standards, and these standards should be a weekly, consistent, constant part of your process in leading your students. In fact, I would highly recommend that you bring your students to the chart. If you don't have the chart, you can get the chart. If you want the chart, you can get the chart. But if you are working in a different organization or a team or even in a company, you need to have standards that your team can go to, that you can draw on, not just value statements that are there to kind of make everybody feel good, but I'm talking about stuff that matters, right? So for example, we would start here, and we have 6 that are based on the 6 solid standards of leadership that we have in the Quest system. The first one is build up, and we simply say that we use our words for good. And so our catchphrase here is build up. The next then is advance the team, right? We know our actions impact others, so we're going to advance the team. Number 3, we genuinely love seeing others succeed. And we say it this way: it's not about me. It's about seeing others succeed. Number 4, we show spirit in our work. What does that mean? We're putting excellence in everything that we do. So excellence is an attitude. It's a way of thinking. Let me get rid of this screen here real quick. Make it easy. There we go. Okay, that's a little easier. So excellence is an attitude. And the 5th one is we have faith for the future. What does that mean? Better and better. Things are going to get better. We're going to improve. We're going to increase. We're going to get stronger, right? And number 6 is we guard our purity with wise choices. So we say it this way: right choices, right results. Now, these phrases are phrases that our Quest students are learning, and they're not only learning what they say, but they're going to learn what they mean and how to apply them. And on a consistent basis, we're referring back to these things. So when we hear students maybe fighting, bickering, arguing outside of the standard, outside of the culture we want, what are we going to say? We're going to say, hey, wait a minute. What do? We build up. That's right. Great job, everybody. We build up. Now tell me what that means. Well, we use our words for good, and we advance the team. So we build others up, because it's not about me. It's about us getting better and better, right? We love to see others succeed. So it's not about me. So I'm going to build others up so the team can advance. And you can see how These phrases begin to build culture and build a language around the culture so that rather than having to do great big long speeches, you can just draw back and go, hey, wait a minute, excellence is an attitude. It's a way of thinking. We think excellent. We don't just do excellent. We think excellently on this team, and it's building culture. So anyhow, it's what I wanted to share today. Incredibly important stuff, especially where it concerns students and creating an environment in which they can really grow and personally develop. Man, the culture piece and setting that culture is incredibly important. So I'd love to hear feedback from you on this. What are your thoughts? What are the things that you're experiencing? How do you go about setting culture for your team? If you're interested in the culture banner, you can let us know. We'd love to get you connected to that. You'll be available on our website in the future. You can go check that out at quest.org, KUEST.org. So thanks for tuning in today, man. Share this out. Share it out with your friends. Share it out with teachers, with coaches, with leaders, anybody that works with young students. Share this out because building culture is key to their strong development. So thanks for joining me today. Until next time, keep building strong young leaders.